Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys. So we have been speaking with our dear brother, the one who was confessing and saying that he is a Satanist. Strange things do happen in this world. So the latest message from the conversation that we have been having with him reads like this. Hi my brother, I am back. So like I told you that when I had turned and became like a lizard, those home lizards that always crawl around the walls, I could not be transformed back into a human being. Then a certain punishment for me was then set. I was supposed to become a crippled and I had to go around begging for money. The thing is that I had to be given this money through kindness. That is how we are able to cast bad luck on the person that would have given us the money through the kindness of their heart. I would constantly be driven to different cities, and once I'll be in a different city or a territory, we don't name cities by their names but according to their spiritual territories. I would then be made to be blind throughout the day, and I'll be with my assistant who would then be holding the money. When the day ends, we would go back to the temple where our priest and some of our members whom we attend the same temple with in the same territory. Then for several days, the money will then be placed in an altar and it will be prayed upon, casting 7 demons upon the money that I would have been given by all of those kind-hearted people. All of these things we had to do whilst we will be fasting. Whenever people would give us food so that we can eat, we will be thankful. But once those people would have driven off, we would throw away the food because we were supposed to do all of these things whilst we were fasting. Don't you know that the moment that you fast, your spiritual man becomes stronger, but the more that you chase after the things of this world, then your spiritual man will become much more weaker. So after we had made our prayers inviting the 7 demons, the owners of the money that would have given me the money when I'll be begging, those demons would then follow the person who would have assisted me, giving them several afflictions. Some of these demons would then find a home to live freely with all of these people, and that is what we long for. As long as these demons can find a home, we will be happy. Demons would rather stay in a tree here on earth than to be a prince back in hell. So I will write to you the full steps to total demonic possession. So as usual, when I was begging for money at the robots or at any intersection, depending on the territory, one day there was this good-hearted pastor. He then stopped his car and invited us into his car. When we got into his car, he then gave my assistant, whom I always traveled with, some money and food. He then tried preaching to us. We were reading his heart as if it was an open book. Deep in my heart, as for me, I didn't want this man to be afflicted by the demons that we were about to cast upon his life, for he was nothing but a kind-hearted man. He used to go to those churches. There are those simple churches that do not believe in certain revelations or prophecies and stuff like that, even though I do not want to mention them by their names. But he was a good, godly man. When he gave me the money, my assistant then took the money and we kept it separately. We then went back to the temple. It was during the evening when we went back to the temple. Then there was a huge celebration because through this lukewarm pastor, we knew that a dozen souls will be brought to us. This man, even though he was a godly man, but he was following the wrong doctrine. That is why there was so much celebration, because to us this was like a blind man that was leading a dozen of blind souls. The ritual we did with this money is that late at night we drove from the temple. Then we went to this other graveyard and we tied the money to a tombstone that was on a grave that we had chosen. Then after 3 days, we returned back to the graveyard and we took the money. So this pastor always passed through that intersection where I would stand all day with my assistant begging for money, and he would always give us a bottle of mineral water and bread. But on that day, we went to that intersection with that money that he had given me. And as he was passing by, we then gave him the money. But after we had given him the money, my assistant asked the pastor if he was willing to buy for us a bottle of Coca-Cola and bread. He then took the money and he said that he will buy the bread and the Coca-Cola, but now he won't be able to bring the bread and the Coca-Cola on that same day. Then my assistant then said, it is fine. Tomorrow you can bring the bread and the Coca-Cola. It will be fine. My brother, the sad part is that after we had given that pastor the money, he then used that cursed money to purchase his first prostitute. That same pastor went to this other brothel. This brothel, it was run by our priest, but he just had a Nigerian guy in front whom we were inspiring to run that brothel that was filled with prostitutes and drugs. So this Nigerian guy, he thought that he was in control, but no, he was not in control, because our priest was the one who was in control of that brothel. For us, whenever we inspire people to run criminal organizations, we do not care about the money, but we know that there are certain crimes that invite the presence of certain demons. Know you not that in rich suburbs there are less violent crimes, but if you check the suicide rates there is much higher than in poor neighborhoods. It is because in each and every territory it has its own spiritual entity, and the crimes and the sins committed there would then invite certain demons that can cause different afflictions in different territories. Unknowingly, when that pastor took the cursed money, he went home. Whilst he was fast asleep at home, we were busy in our temple. My brother, when I am saying busy in our temple, I know that a lot of people would picture something like a temple. No, this was just a house. This house, my brother, when it was bought, it was strategically bought because it is very close to this other cemetery. So we always perform most of those rituals at night. It is a matter of just getting out of that townhouse and getting to the cemetery. That is where our temple was. So when that pastor was fast asleep, we were busy doing prayers in his name. On that day, I couldn't go to the graves with my brothers because I was sick from standing in the sun all day long. Yes, it is true. We do get sick sometimes because those are the natural laws set from the beginning of times. If you would allow me one day, I will write on the issue as to why Satanist even exists in the first place. The idea is that God is the one who is very evil, but people are too stupid to realize this. That is why Satanists exist. They are the ones who are trying to free humanity. When my brothers went, they then wrote that pastor's name on a red piece of paper. Then they took turns to urinate on this piece of paper, and the curse was then completed. The next day, as that pastor was driving to church, he then met a woman who was possessed by a seducing spirit. In the car, he had that cursed money. As he was speaking to that pastor, along their conversation, they had a conversation in which she mentioned that she was a prostitute. Feeling sorry for her, not knowing she was like a snare put before him, he then asked her to take him to the place where she worked. That is how this pastor found himself inside that brothel, and he then used that cursed money to be with his first prostitute. And from there, he came to us, and once he was at the intersection, as he was speaking with us, handing us the coke and the bread that he had bought. He then lied to us, but we knew that he was lying because we knew that spiritually he was now a dirty man. From there on, we started doing a lot of prayers that would affect this pastor or anyone linked to him or anyone that was inside the sphere of his influence. When he would be standing in front of his church preaching, our priest will also be standing in front, acting as if he was standing right next to him. Our pastor would then send 2 demons to go around the church, making the women to lust after this pastor. And in turn, this pastor will have some voices that will be whispering to his souls to lust after the women that were in his church. This man was now like a wolf in church. This man was now lusting after the sheep that he was supposed to look after. There was so much fornication going on in that church. It was really funny. The fornication continued until this pastor was caught one night when there was a police raid at the brothel, and he had lied to his wife that he would be at church, but he was caught also in that raid, sleeping in that brothel with this other prostitute. The pastor was drunk when the police arrested him, so he could not face his wife. He then threw himself from a balcony and he died instantly. After that, the little church doors were closed. I hope that I have answered your question about how do we curse people's money. Dear listeners, right there was a part of a conversation that we had with one of our listeners. Strange things do happen in this world.